I want to welcome you back to the Manage to Win podcast. This is a special podcast. It is sponsored by Habitly.com, where you can learn soft skills. You can really improve your soft skills individually as a team. Check that out, Habitly.com. But I really want to dive into this podcast. It's with Morne Van Staden of Journey Coffee. They are in Vacaville, Fairfield, that area. And they are really loving on people. What would this world be like if we all focused on loving one another, not correcting one another, not judging one another, but we just loved one another? Morne and his wife chose coffee. You may choose a different type of business to do this, but I'd like to just dive in. It's actually filmed on site at his One Lake store. He has 5 different locations, including a whiskey and wine bar, woohoo, for some people, but I'm into the coffee side. And just hear what he has to say about his journey at Journey Coffee. I think you're gonna love it. There's some great takeaways here. Morne, I'm really glad to be here. We haven't done a lot of stuff on site, as I've mentioned to you, so I'm excited to be here at your One Lake store.
Cool.
Right? How long has this one been here?
2 years.
2 years.
We opened up during COVID.
And are like you crazy busy in the warm weather? Because I'm looking out here and seeing the seats and the lake and the rest of it. I mean,
Yep, summertime is booming. Yeah.
It's gotta be, and it's gotta be a nice place to sit and just relax. But this is a leadership podcast, and we talk about company culture. And what happened, the reason I invited you, that doesn't happen often these days. I get people all the time saying, can I be on your podcast?
Wow.
But I was in your Journey
Thank
Coffee
you.
shop in Vacaville, and we were meeting, actually, my wife Kelly and I were meeting Jenny Murphy and her family, and she considers Jenny her best friend, although they have moved from Vacaville to Oklahoma.
I know, they left us.
Yeah, I know.
Unbelievable.
I know. Great people.
Yeah.
Great people. Hopefully they come back. But, I was just in there, and I was looking, and the funny thing is, I saw the propeller. I noticed you got a propeller back there. You'll have to tell the story behind the propeller.
Okay.
And then I saw the pride values, and then I saw you matter, and I saw and we'll probably walk around and look at it in a little bit, your thing of everybody should be included, or how you word it much better. And I was just like, I got to interview this guy because I love this place. And also I'm partial. I love wood slab tables.
Okay.
And you got the wood slabs going on in these locations. So,
Okay, good.
Okay. So I don't know where you want to start.
Yeah.
But you've been on a journey here, Journey Coffee.
Yeah.
And I think the audience needs to hear about it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be on the show. I mean, when you reached out and I did some research, I was like, man, I think I need to be sitting in your, interviewing you and asking you things because of all the experience you have in podcasts. So I'm just honored. Thank you for including me. So I'll hopefully share some things that I've learned, and I'm still learning and growing. But I think for me, this was never a big business idea, to be honest with you. It was something we wanted to do as human beings with my wife and myself. And how do we change the world? Like how do we do this? And you asked about the propeller earlier, and there was kind of a moment of fate that we moved here. I was going into the aviation direction, and the guy that I was flying for, he passed away, and we were in this moment, and my wife and myself were like, what are we gonna do? We moved to California, and I don't have a job. And what are we gonna do? And we kind of looked at each other and said, well, we really believe this is where we're meant to be. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to change our path and where we're going as a married couple. And
where were you at that time?
So we just had moved from Connecticut.
To Vacaville?
To Vacaville, yeah.
To Vacaville, okay, to Vacaville.
So I actually just listened to your last podcast, and the guy was from South Africa too, I think, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, originally from South Africa.
Okay.
But so we kind of looked at each other and just said, like, what do we want to do with our life? This is a crossroads, and we wanted to love people. And we decided, like, well, how do we do that and still make money to provide for our family? So a really nice thing to do, but we still have to pay the bills. And as we kind of thought through, how can we do this as a livelihood? A coffee shop is the concept that kind of came up.
Yeah.
So all the values and the vision and all those things that you've read have transpired on how do we actually change our world, and giving the tools to our staff to be able to translate, well, how do we do this?
Well, did you come up with that first? Or, I mean, so here you're out of work. Okay.
Yep.
That's a problem.
Yep.
And hey, I want to start a business.
Yep.
I need money to start a business. So it depends on how candid you want to be, but how did you actually get it started? Because for so many people, it's like, I'm out of work. How do I get something started? There's like, no way.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a miracle story, and I don't know how religious you want to get into this.
You
but
talk any way you want. It's okay. I've had swearing and I've had religion. I've had each side. So
so we really felt like this is a pathway that God wanted us to go on, and at the time we didn't know how we were going to afford to open up a store. We did some budgeting and forecast, like $75,000 is what we need. Great, we can do that. Went to the banks. The bank said great, But then there came a moment where 2-3 weeks before we signed a lease, after finding a space, the bank said, sorry, we can't give you the loan because we didn't realize you actually are not a brand new business. You guys have been operating for a few months, so you don't qualify for an SBA loan. So in that moment, we just decided, like we're either all going in on this, so we're just going to say the bank said we couldn't do it. Because it was either that, we signed the lease, we had enough money to pay for the deposit, and we just believed like we're all in, like we want to love people, and that's again why we exist. We exist because we want to have a place that can tell people that they are welcomed and they valued and loved, and we're all in. Let's believe it. And we felt like there was a thumbs up from the man upstairs, and God said, I'll be with you. And somehow miraculously, out of a lot of hard work, I did all the tiling and the flooring and the cabinetry, and kind of we made it through. We opened up the store without the loan. So with a lot of hard work, with a lot of guidance from people that came in and said, hey, can I help you with this? Can I donate a slab? We opened up the store, and it happened. So,
okay, pause for a minute now.
Yeah.
So how long had you been married?
About a year.
About 1 year. Yeah, there's a test for you.
No, sorry. It was 2 years.
2 years. Yeah, okay. Twice as long.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, 2 years, a massive amount of time.
Yeah.
So you're married 2 years, no kids at that time, right?
We were pregnant.
We were pregnant. Okay, I like the way you said that, because I talked to somebody the other day and he said, my wife got pregnant. I said, wait a minute, time out. You had something to do with that. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so here your wife, you're 2 years into it, you lost your job, and new marriage, which has pressures in and of itself, okay? Even though I assume
my wife
you were
was
best
just
friends.
amazing. She,
Okay, all right. So that's great. And then you've got a kid on the way, and then you're like, oh yeah, well we have no money. Let's spend every penny we have and open up this business. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so talk to me about the dynamic husband and wife, because there's some husbands and wives that can work together, and they're incredible. And I've worked with them. Luis Alvarez has been on the show. He works with his wife. We worked with her for a long time. They have a great relationship, and he's down in Salinas. Mm-hmm. Okay, great guy. And then there's others I know too. But talk to me about that dynamic of making this type of decision, particularly with a kid on the way.
Yep. I made a lot of big decisions in my life. Well, not a lot. Again. Moving across the country and moving across the world from South Africa, there's 3 things that I've always done when I make the big decisions, and they have to line up. And again, it is a religious thing, so take it or not, but there's 3 things that for me have always lined up when I've sought counsel from God on these things. The first one has the Spirit of God spoken to me about this? Is this something that is just a Morne idea, or is this something I feel like is not just from someone else? The next one has been from the Bible. The Bible is the living Word of God that speaks to my wife and myself. And every time we've had a decision, there's been a very clear, definitive, okay, yeah, that's pretty clear what we should do. And then the third one is always some kind of godly counseling. And if those 3 things don't line up, we've never, even opening up these different locations, we've always gone, are those things lined up? And when they are, we're willing to throw our whole life into that. And in that moment, my wife and myself, we seek those three things, and we said, okay, we'll do it. And yeah.
So now with your wife, has there been from day one and continues, or has it changed at all? Total transparency on finances, on what's happening with the business?
Yeah, 100%.
Or does she say, you take it and I trust you type of thing?
I know she does stress on most things, so I try not stress her out on things that she doesn't need to know, but there's full transparency.
Okay, okay. You have a regular meeting schedule? So Jim,
with my wife?
Yeah, so there's a guy named Jim, I can't remember his last name at the moment, down in Orange County. He's done teaching on marriage, and he said that he would have 3 meetings a week with his wife, every week. And he came about because he was a youth pastor, and he learned this the hard way, and he's like, I know what's wrong. So one meeting is they do a business meeting every week, and there they talk about scheduling, budget, planning, kids, whatever it is, business meeting. So if something comes up during the week and it's not like the fire's burning, then it's like, oh, wait, talk about it in the business meeting. The second thing they do is they have a spiritual meeting because they're both involved in their faith, following Christ, and they want to share notes. What are you learning with your group? What are you learning in your walk? Type of thing. And the third meeting they do is they go out on a date. And on the date, you cannot talk business.
Cool.
You can talk a little bit about the spiritual stuff if you want, that's fine. And sometimes the date's just going for a walk on the beach because they live at Dana Point. Okay? But they have done that for decades. And he swears by it. Now, I think you could almost combine the spiritual and the date.
Yeah.
Or maybe the spiritual happens daily and then you have the date. But I love the idea, and I try to do this with my wife, Kelly, where we have a regular business meeting. We're not perfect every week, but we try to handle those stressful items, on one meeting and try to postpone it to that. She's better at that than me. I'm Mr. Impulsive, okay?
Me too.
So you had the transparency, and now the other thing that comes up is one of the mistakes I made when I was younger, and I avoid it very carefully now, is I would talk to people who would say yes to my ideas. And if they were going to say no, then I didn't go back and talk to them. I didn't realize what I was doing. It wasn't on purpose, but I was so driven to do something, so convinced. And I didn't have, although I was following the Lord at that time, it wasn't a deep walk.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's the vending machine. God, I pray for it, I'm going to get it. So how have you avoided, since one of your key steps, that third step is getting that guidance, that confirmation, how have you chosen the people that you're going to speak with so they're tough enough to say no? Because it sounds like that's what you did.
Yep.
How did you choose those people, test drive those people, make sure, they can say whatever? I don't know.
So normally one of those people would have been my wife.
Of course, yeah.
And if she says no about something, generally I'm like, okay, cool. It's not something we should do. I have my best man from my wedding. He is just an incredible man. He was a VP for GE, so he understands business. He understands my heart as well.
Yeah.
And he's just always been someone who has been a very straight shooter with me. So when I go to him, I know he comes from a business perspective, but he also comes from understanding my heart. And I'm kind of like you too. Sometimes I'm like, let's go, let's just do this. And all in. And so he's been one of my really good, and he's a pastor now. So, he comes from a spiritual perspective, and he comes from a business perspective, but also understanding who I am as a person really well. So he's kind of been one of those people in my life that have been that.
So if you're willing to share,
yeah,
what's a time when you were really convinced something was a go, and you went to this guy, and what's his name?
Casey.
Casey?
Yep.
Okay, and Casey said no or not yet. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, man, let me think about that. I think most of the time I've probably gone to Casey at that point. It's been checked through my wife, it's been checked through the word, and it's been something that's, I don't think I've gone to him yet where there's been a moment where he's like, Morne, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, but maybe he tweaked it a little bit?
Yeah, I would say he's definitely
Yeah.
tweaked it. Like the theater that we just bought. I don't know if you know about this theater,
But talk about it. The audience doesn't know
yeah,
about it. Go ahead and talk about
we
it.
went in the middle of like COVID's just about to end. We bought a theater. So a great thing to do, right? When COVID.
Is that one of the old style ones?
Well,
It looked like it had the old style marquee and everything when I saw it
it's
online.
an old theater, but someone renovated it fully 8 years ago. So it's almost brand new inside. And the last 8 people have not actually succeeded in making it work.
Yeah.
So again, terrible business idea. And so he had a lot of questions from the business side. Well, how are you going to pay for this? How does this work? It's great to have faith that this is going to work, but so he definitely walked through a lot of those questions.
Yeah.
I also have another friend that is.
But wait a minute, can I stay with the theater for a minute?
Yeah.
Is it still a theater, or did you turn the theater into a coffee shop?
It's both.
Okay. So how does that work?
So during the day, it's a coffee shop, and at nighttime, it becomes like an event space.
Ah, okay.
I'd love to take you there and show you what it looks like. But for the first time, the theater actually has life in it every day.
Yeah.
So the cafe during the daytime, it's open. We have all kinds of community events there, like the Rotary Clubs, the Soroptimist groups, B&I groups, special needs moms groups. So the theater is alive during the day. And then on the weekends, we'll have different kind of events.
So how much, I'm sorry, I'm captain of rabbit trails.
Okay, cool. I love it. Me too. This is going to be a long day. The two of us, we'll keep going.
So talk to me, how much footage do you have that's for coffee shop type stuff?
For the theater?
Yeah, at the theater, you have coffee shop stuff.
Yep.
And unless it's all, is it a flat theater or is it slopes to the screen?
It's flat theater, but it's got mezzanine seating, and then it's got like a balcony seating as well.
So is the flat theater part can be all coffee shop, and then you kind of just rearrange it so then it's theater?
Sometimes we'll be busy. The cafe has a front lobby.
Okay.
And in the lobby, it's got like a cafe, theater entrance, and a bar.
Okay.
And so that whole front lobby really is what's the cafe part of the theater.
And how many square feet is that for like?
It's about 1,500 square foot.
Okay.
Total with the bathrooms.
That's pretty good.
So it's not huge, but it's perfect for, people coming in, having a coffee. It's not necessarily.
And what did you put on the walls?
What did we put on the walls?
What did you put on the walls? I mean, here it's a theater.
Yeah.
Did you put theater stuff on the walls? Yeah. I mean, no, you put people stuff.
We put people stuff.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what you actually walk into that. You walk into the double doors of the theater, and that's what you see is a bunch of people.
And those are pictures of real people who have come to your coffee shop. Those are not models or
nope. Those are staff,
clip art or
staff members, community members, police officers that come in. Mark from the Levin, who runs an incredible program here for underprivileged neighborhoods and does an amazing job with the kids.
Yeah.
There's one of our farmers actually over there that we buy coffee from. So
when I was down at the Vacaville store and met Jenny and the family with Kelly, my wife, and Tiffany, their friend, also was there. There was a young gal who took care of me, and I'll speak about one of the elephants in the room. Being 65-year-old white male is not always a welcome in certain areas. Obviously, with yours it was. But there was a young gal who served me, and she's on a different track than me. She's got dials in the ears. She's got tats, and she's got her hair pulled back, and she just did a wonderful job. And I just said to her, "Thank you so much. You're very good at what you do." And she said, "Thanks." And I was just like, "Yeah, I love being there. I love people like yourself."
Me too.
And I just loved being there, and it was just I loved being interacting with her. I don't want to say being served by her, because I could have equally enjoyed serving her coffee if roles were reversed. Anyway, I'm sorry. We were talking about theater, the spacing. Okay, well that's really great. And how did I get to the theater? So now I've totally lost on my rabbit trail. We don't remember?
I think just you were asking how do we make those decisions.
Oh yes, you were jumping to your next friend. You talked about the first guy, Casey, was that?
Casey, yeah.
Casey. Now, who was the second one you started to talk about?
And then I have Jeff Fletcher, who is another person who, he's a finance major, business graduate. He comes just from background of understanding finances and logical decisions.
Yeah.
And he's also someone who will never just say yes to me because he cares about me. So he's someone who's also given us great, honest feedback.
And how long have you known Jeff?
About 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And how long ago did you start Journey Coffee?
9 years.
9 years.
Actually, almost, 9 years.
So you knew Casey at the time.
Yep.
Okay. And it's very interesting that you started in a situation with no finances, conceivably, or at least you were putting it all on the line. And but you had one friend who didn't stop you. And then now you probably have more than Jeff and Casey, but you now have this financial superpower working with you as you're expanding. How many shops do you have? How many stores do you have now?
We have 5 stores.
5 stores.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And how many people do you serve every week? Do you know?
Yeah. So we serve about 900 customers a day. So close to 6,000 people on a weekly basis.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you open 7 days a week?
7 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So someone else that I didn't mention yet, who is internally in our organization, his name's Nick Smur. We've become really good friends. His wife started working for us, and he left his career as a nurse. That's what he was going to do. He worked for us part-time and said, I want to be part of this thing to love people. And he's now our COO. Also someone who speaks very honestly to me about the operations internally.
Yeah.
So he's been a great reason for our success too, having someone in our organization who thinks very operationally and leads people extremely well and is not scared to offend me. He'll just give it to me as he needs to. So he's been another really important person internally in the company to have, especially as a CEO who really just goes and is not very good with the detail part of things. And having someone like him who grounds me a little bit has been very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, when I explained that young gal who served me in Vacaville, you were about to call out her name, weren't you?
Probably Angie.
Angie? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure we could call out like all of your employees, but
Cool.
Thank you, Angie. Very interesting. So this thing, before I forget, what's the story behind the propeller besides you were in the aviation business? Because the 2 propellers I've seen are wooden.
Yep.
And when I normally think of aviation these days, I don't think of wooden propellers. So what's the choice there?
The wooden ones were just what went with the cosmetics, but
Okay.
the story was just really to have something of the thing that brought us to Journey, which was this aviation career.
Okay.
Right. If we didn't take this lunge into thinking that I was going to be in the aviation industry, Journey wouldn't have started. So the aviation brought me to open up this concept. So it played a part.
Okay. Well, I've got a buddy of mine who's a computer nerd. I work a lot in the computer industry.
Mm-hmm.
He just has learned to fly. I think he might have just gotten his license. So I took a photo of that and sent it to him, John Wilson in Maryland. And he was like, oh, that's totally cool. I got to see that when I come by. He's going to do a cross-country trip. So this love people at such a great time in our nation, where our nation is focused on what divides us, focused on ourselves, and kind of coming apart at the seams. And there have been a number of people I've heard, sounds like you also, is really what we need to do to heal is to love one another. Yeah. And focus on what we have in common. Mm-hmm. So as you're growing, as you're doing these things, talk to me, talk to the audience. You really think about that as like, we want to do a business where we can love people. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like in a coffee shop?
It can get messy. It can be. But again, that's why the importance of bringing the values in is supporting that mission. Because when we agree in this relationship as a staff and as a team, you're agreeing that these are the values we're going to live by. And ultimately, those values that we created helps us love people. But I've always heard people saying, I actually had a great friend of mine who took Journey. He came to work for us as a volunteer for a long time, Gary, and helped us with a lot of our cosmetics and operations and manuals and everything. he always said to me, Morne, this is a tough thing to be able to say you want to be family and business and love people and do business. It's not the normal model. And I would agree, it definitely is difficult. But I do believe it's even more powerful if you are all doing it for more than just a money-making reason. If you're all believing to love people and finding systems and finding values and finding operations to help align the gray line things that come with being a family. Family means I'm not going to, you're my family no matter what, right? But if you're working for me, do I let you go if you're family because you're not doing your job? Yeah.
Well, you have to.
There's a decision, at least with what we do, that you either choosing to be part of our family or not. And to be part of our family, these are the values, these are the mission. This is, so we use family model in what we do, but if we got to fire someone because they are hurting people and not loving them, it's a little different. But
and maybe not even in hurting them or not loving them. That may be the extreme.
Yeah.
But what I have developed is what I call good cop leadership. So good cop, bad cop negotiation style.
Yeah.
So I teach that everybody can be the good cop, and everybody's a leader. Mm-hmm. So when there's an issue, there are boundaries.
Yep.
But the good cop comes alongside, talks at a round table, or if it's a difficult conversation, you do one of two things. Well, there's probably others, but the two that I mentioned is, if you have to have a difficult conversation, you go on a walk.
Yeah.
Because when we walk, we're side by side. We're not toe to toe.
Yep.
Okay? So it's like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And you talk like a good cop. I really care about you. And this situation's coming up. What can we do about this? Because it's not meeting our values. It's not meeting our performance standards. Or this customer was insulted. Yes, the customer was rude. Yes, the customer was terrible. And maybe we don't let that customer back. However, we can be stronger. They can misbehave, but we can't. So what do we do? Or you sit down at a table, ideally round, but pull out a puzzle. And just start working the puzzle with the other person, or there's 3 or 4 or 5 of you. And as you work the puzzle, you can start talking about the issue, and the puzzle distracts you enough where people will feel comfortable because they'll be tense. They'll lighten up, and then they'll start talking.
Yeah.
And you can have the conversation. So the good cop model works really good, but you have to have some boundaries.
Yeah.
Even families have to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, when someone's misbehaving and it's disrupting the family, there have to be some boundaries.
Yeah.
Administered in a loving way, like you said. So talk to me about hiring. So we have this weird thing going on in America today where there's a tremendous amount of people that are not working. And whether they're homeless and have some issues going on, or whether they just get money from the government or whatever it might be, there's a large number of everybody I talk to who's like retail or particularly food service, they're having trouble hiring. So what's your situation? Are you having trouble hiring people? Are you finding people?
No, we've been very fortunate.
Okay.
When we opened up another thing called the Library, which is a whiskey and wine bar.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a challenge for us to get that staffed, but in terms of our regular operations and cafes and everything, we've been very fortunate. We've had people, again, I think, who believe in the mission, and we haven't had people just leave and quit and not show up. So we've been very fortunate with that.
Yeah, and so you must have how do you vet your people? How do you confirm that they're connected with your values?
So Nick Smur, who's our operations director, he does all the interviews right now. And there's a couple of characteristics that we look through. The biggest one for us is humility.
Okay.
That's a big one, that in the questions that we ask, we try and find the source of, are they people who have humility? Yeah. Most of the time, that is, if someone's asking me questions, that probably means they have some humility because they want to know about me versus telling me everything about them.
Yeah.
So humility, what do they do in their spare time? Are they spending time with people? Do they enjoy people? So there's a couple of characteristics that we look for, humility being probably the top one.
Okay. And why the whiskey and the wine bar?
Yeah.
Because so I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
Yeah.
Okay. So the whiskey and the wine bar. So I haven't had a drink since I was in my early 30s because I don't sip. You may have noticed with the coffee. As a matter of fact, that was sipping for me with coffee. Okay.
Wow.
But I'm that way with alcohol.
Okay.
So I just drink.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have low tolerance. So I realized when I was in my early 30s, I don't do this well. And I have alcoholics in the family. So I'm dropping it. So when you talk about loving people, it's one thing. This is an addiction, at least for me. But I do limit myself. But with wine and the whiskey, that can get pretty serious. So why did you decide to go into that area?
Well, I think we were trying to replicate a space like we have in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you want to hang out with your friend, you go like, hey, you want to get together? And you go, yeah, let's go have some coffee. Our culture is very much like that with, hey, let's go for a drink.
Yeah.
Not meaning they're going to go out and get trashed, but let's go have a drink. So we wanted to have a place in a community for the evening time, and people don't want to drink coffee at nighttime. So the whiskey and wine became something that we felt like that's where people go when they want to, and we wanted to create a safe place. So when you go to our whiskey and wine bar, it is a higher end, elevated bar where you're not going to have people trying to order 7 bottles of wine, or because it's expensive. So it is a little more of a higher end. You're not going to get the guys who are drinking. We haven't had any problems yet.
Yeah. And how long has it been open?
About a month.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty new. And it's honestly been cool. Like we have games on the tables, so people will come and just play games. It's been a great date night place for couples who come out, and it's a safe place for them to have a drink and have a pizza where they don't feel like they have to leave.
So you've got some food also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a pizza oven out there.
Okay.
So,
quality food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pizza can be great. So, and it's not a pickup place?
No.
No.
Now, I will say there are people in the community that come there because where else does someone go who's lonely, who doesn't have family, doesn't have somewhere to go? And they've found that in our cafes, where they'll just come and hang out here because they've kind of made friends and they've made a place that feels comfortable.
Yeah.
So I would say we have some people that come to the library to just have a drink and chat with the bartender, and they'll meet people that they know because we've kind of created that kind of community.
Yeah.
It's actually cool to watch. You don't see in a restaurant someone goes over to someone's table and sits down, and it's kind of rude to do that if someone's sitting at a restaurant. But yeah, so we see that at the library where, I'll see John and I'll say, hey, John, how's it going? And sit down and start chatting.
Yeah.
So it's a place for the lonely people to go.
So it's like Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah, where everybody knows your name.
Everybody knows your name.
Yeah. So as you go on this journey, where do you see you growing from here?
I think as far as the doors open and the opportunities come, I don't want to keep pushing without having the support either, because now we're in this space where we're not a small business anymore.
Right.
But we're not a corporate yet, so filling in roles like a CFO and finding a marketing director and some of the bigger components of a big company. So I think at the place we're at now, we kind of are right in between that. So I would think we'd look to maybe open a drive-through to help with some revenue generating. We don't have a drive-through.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, well, that doesn't fit into your vision of community. Well, it'll fund the community. Places like this, that's a lot of retail. If you look at a Starbucks, they don't have space for people to sit.
Right.
Because it costs money.
Yeah.
So a lot of people even look at our growth and goes, wow, Morne and them must be making a lot of money. Well, not really, because it's an investment in the mission to have a place for people.
Right.
And that place costs money. Our ticket items are not like a restaurant where it's a $30 ticket per person.
Yeah.
It's more like 5 or 6 or 10,
Right.
So the drive-throughs is definitely part of a potential opportunity we're looking for to have a good generating income business model that's going to spit out some of the cash to fund more of this stuff.
And it depends how you do the drive-through.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun...
How you make it more pleasant, more personable type of thing. It would be interesting to brainstorm on is how you make that a more personal experience.
I mean, my wife, we have 4 kids, so it isn't an easy thing to get out to just get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So they are just those practical needs for people that we could love, and also providing coffee and good quality products for those people. There's not another option for them for a drive-through.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes it. So if you were to kind of narrow it down to one or two, maximum three things that you've learned that are like, I didn't know this when I got into it. And these are like the three biggest takeaways. If you were to walk away from the business today, or you were to advise somebody else, hey, I want to help you on your journey as an entrepreneur. Here are three things, two things, one thing that just, these are like the big takeaways that I would encourage you to consider. What would they be?
I think the three big things, I think clear expectations allows everybody to go in the right direction. So because we grew out of nothing, we didn't have a mind map of, hey, this is what a register expectation is, or this expectation, or administrative for corporate. And we've just found the expectations when people have it and they know they're succeeding, and everybody's expectations are in the same place as a growing company, especially because those expectations could be changing constantly with a growing company. So I've had to be very clear with expectations as we've grown, because people's roles have changed as we've grown.
Let's stay there for a moment. So there's a few things. So when you set the expectations, do the training, do you also test or role play to see whether they grasp what was taught?
Do we role play? So in terms of our basic register and all the other Showtime training, I would say yes. They have a training, and then they shadow, and then we give feedback on that. So there is watch what I do what I did, and then we have the lost training.
That's great. And I love the way you call it Showtime.
Yeah, that's kind of what we call it.
Stuff.
On Showtime.
It's great. Yeah.
And I think I could do a better job with making sure when I'm dealing with more of corporate staff now, I treat that the same.
Yeah.
As we're growing, I'm kind of having more people on higher tiers. And I think something that I've maybe done wrong is because they're in higher tiers, I feel like, they just know.
You make assumptions.
And make that assumption. And so I still need to do a better job with even the higher tiers, or even some of the higher tiers are generally people who are older, maybe older than me even.
Yeah.
So I've not done as good job as those tiers have increased to kind of do the same thing as what you're saying, is do a better job with making sure that those expectations are repeated back to me. So
and you mentioned something else. I forget the term you used, but you indicated that not only do you set the expectations, you confirm that they're meeting the expectation, but then there is some regular feedback loop on how they're doing.
Yep.
And what does that look like? How often are they meeting with someone who gives them feedback on how well they're meeting your expectations?
So Nick, our ops person, meets with every single director every week.
Okay.
And he'll talk about the 3 Ps: people, how's your staff, what's going on with your staff, customers, Yelp reviews, product, is there any product things? And they'll bring back everything from last week that they spoke about. Did they follow up on that? And then profit, meaning just, hey, is your staffing percentages right? Is sales down? So they have that weekly meeting where they talk about those 3 Ps every week.
Okay.
And then when there's major issues that have arisen from those, there's always accountability every week. They kind of will hash those out.
Okay.
So weekly they have a meeting.
Okay, so your first item, big takeaway, is expectations.
Yeah.
What you said you might have 2 or 3.
So I would say part of those expectations then is really having that mission statement. It's amazing to me how many small business people don't really have one.
And what's your mission?
To restore and rejuvenate genuine human community, to make people feel welcomed, valued, and loved. And it's a little bit of a long one, but it is something that was lost during COVID. So we've added that to restore it, because people have just forgotten how to be in community.
Yeah, and did you come up with that 9 years ago when you started, or has that been something that started with one version and it's been updated?
It really started with just making people feel loved.
Okay.
And that's always been in the center of it.
Okay.
And then we added the valued, and only because it was an easier way for us to train staff. Well, what does love even mean? Well, it means I need to make you feel valued.
Yeah.
Well, another way to make people feel loved is to welcome them, to make sure when they come in those doors, that's how you are able to engage in that love. So those were just the 3 words that kind of has evolved over, I would say, the first year.
So this is kind of a starting point where you mentioned this. This is your mission statement, right?
Yeah.
We endeavor to rejuvenate and restore genuine human community where all people can feel welcomed, valued, and loved. So genuine human community, but and I'm being particular here, but I'm slightly OCD, but I haven't been diagnosed that. Okay. So I love the choice of rejuvenate and restore. I would almost consider restore and rejuvenate, because you almost restore first and then you rejuvenate. I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong. But I love the word choice, and then genuine human community. We don't have that in America very often anymore.
I mean, I think even just with our staff, the ability to speak very honestly and truthfully with each other.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that we try and teach our staff on. How do you really talk to someone? They don't know how to have healthy conflict.
So did everybody hear that? I need you to hear that, okay? See, leaders don't teach soft skills. They think we hire people, they know how to behave.
Yeah.
And how often are you disappointed?
Yeah.
But you're saying you're teaching it. And part of it is you got showtime going on.
Yeah.
But showtime cannot be totally sincere or deep or felt. Whereas when you're talking about what you're talking about, people getting along, talk to me more about that, because that's huge.
Well, I mean, the showtime concept is like, okay, when we on, that's where we just are on show, right?
That's
just
right.
like on a play, if someone's up on stage, you don't have a moment to go like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, we do the show, but behind the scenes, when we off stage, that's when we have our communication. We even have little terminologies like rapid fire feedback to help people to say, hey, can I talk to you about something that was a problem? Can I give you rapid fire feedback? And that's a way for our leaders to be able to just give feedback without feeling like it's, you know.
The reason I was laughing is because we do rapid fire prayer at the House of Prayer.
Yeah.
So, so I'm sorry. It has to be 10 or 15 seconds.
Just a quick.
So sorry.
And
that's
so,
why I started laughing. It wasn't because.
No. And again, Nick, who's our COO, he does such a great job with teaching our leaders how to lead, and then the leaders, which would be on the showtime, how to have these conversations. They don't let our staff get away with just letting issues happen. They make sure that they deal directly with communication with people. And the skills that they're learning are going to help them in their marriage, in other relationships. And so we definitely, that genuineness, right? I can't have a real relationship with you if I can't truthfully speak with you. And then there's sometimes I need to figure out, well, how do I speak truthfully to you so that you can hear what I need to say? Right? I can't just say, well, hey, that shirt that you're wearing for work looks terrible. I need to be able to say in a way, hey, the shirt that you were wearing today, I just want to give you some feedback on it. One of our values is respect. So when you come to work with a shirt that says F you or whatever, that's kind of not showing the respect that our company is showing. So, we have ways that we need to teach them how to communicate. And Nick does a great job with that.
It's interesting because I grew up, I think I mentioned on the podcast that with 2 very loving parents, but when it comes to confrontation or conflict, to conflict, you go into fear of flight or fight mode.
Yep.
Okay. Well, my parents were both flight. Okay. So they didn't teach me how to deal with conflict. They never argued in front of me. As a matter of fact, I never heard them argue until my dad had moved out for a year. He came back and told my mom that he was moving back in the area, but not home. And I heard them argue behind closed doors. And I was 16 at the time.
Wow.
Okay. So I never learned how to do the conflict piece. And now what you see in the media, and what is happening on the bully pulpit and I'm not speaking Christianity, although it can be Christianity, can be any religion, but it's also a lot of the special interest groups that are coming up. It's like, you're going to believe this or you're a bad person. So how to handle that and how to talk things through and also think about things at a deep level, because you didn't mention it, but I bet you're also teaching them to think, am I right with what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, because sometimes I can have a
Perspectives.
reaction, but it's based on a past wound or a bias I have or whatever it might be. And wait, that's not fair. I need to not bring that up.
One of our key tools, we tell them anybody can have a perspective.
Yeah.
And that perspective is because of a wound, because of how I've seen something in the past. And that perspective makes me feel something. And that's all good. The thing you have to resolve, though, is that perspective bringing dysfunction? Is that feeling making disunity? Now, if it is, I need to go to you and say, hey, I had this perspective of what you did, how it hurt me, and I need to find out some truth there. And so those perspectives are just perspectives. They can be truth, and sometimes they're not even truth.
Yeah.
And so feelings are also valid, right? You can feel things, that's good. So we give them those tools of here's a perspective, this is how I feel, can we have a conversation about that perspective and how I feel?
Now, I'm curious whether you also talked to them. I heard recently a guy make a point, and I don't think he's the only person, that there's two major emotions. Everything else comes from those two. There's love and there's fear. And if you look at anger comes from fear, a lot of things come from fear that are unhealthy, that are divisive.
That's good.
And love is where you get comfort and things like that. That's helped me. And I only learned that in the last year, and I'm going to be 66 soon. So, it took me that long. But I find that to be very powerful because when I start getting angry or stressed out, anxiety, all those come from fear. And I try to stop myself, which is not easy.
Yeah.
And say, wait a minute, what am I afraid of here? Or what's my wound in the past? We all got wounds. So I love what you're doing. So I noticed this one here. Now, when I was in the Vacaville store, there was a sign that was like pride.
Yep.
I even took a photo of it because I loved it. And one of the things is I kind of want to take back the word pride for the general community.
Yeah.
Because we used to have pride in what we do. We used to have pride as a nation, that type of thing. And but you don't have pride here. What is this exactly right here?
So these were some of the things that we wanted to let the community know, as well as the people coming to work for us, that you're not just coming to work for a coffee shop, that you are part of something way bigger than just coming to work at a retail, clock in, clock out, here's your coffee. And we wanted to give some inspiration to those people. So we kind of put it in some of the bullet points of the things that we do and who we are, is we want to be a place where people feel welcome, valued, and loved. And do you understand that that's a big deal? More than 50% of our population is divorced. Like more than 50%, I think it was. Is it 50%, I think, right?
It was 50%, but now it's dropped because fewer people are getting married.
Okay, but
So it doesn't
it's
track.
a high percentage, right?
It's very high, very high.
There's even more after COVID, the depression, the amount of loneliness and fear. We carry a huge role in making sure that we love on people. One of the first stores that we opened up, we had a guy, his name was John, and he came in every day with his newspaper and read newspaper and didn't really talk much, but that's what was where he came and read a newspaper. And one day we got a phone call from the police department. They said, hey, do you know John? I forget his last name, so-and-so. We just found him. He committed suicide over this bridge, right around the corner from the store. And again, the understanding from me as an owner, like, this is what we do. We love people. We failed. This guy was coming into our store every day. We were probably the only person that made him feel a little bit of love.
Yeah.
But we should have dug deeper. We should have gone like, John, what are you doing this weekend? And it was so beautiful. We have a guy just similar to John who comes to our downtown location, comes in 2:00 every day, has a tea, reads his paper.
Yeah.
He was invited to Thanksgiving through one of our staff. So again, it was more than just a coffee shop.
Yeah.
It was, this person is valuable, and we're going to invite him for Thanksgiving. For Christmas and Thanksgiving, we always have customers and staff over because it's more than just a coffee shop. So allowing our staff and people to understand that we really are wanting to let people feel valued and loved, and there's such a need for it in today's world.
Yeah, so I want the audience, if you keep the camera on there, I want the audience to notice the care in the words that have been chosen. I also want you to notice that you cannot put these on the wall and not live them out. Okay? No poser is going to get away with having this on the wall. Your business will fail.
Yeah.
Your employees won't stay, your customers won't stay. This concept of being welcomed, valued, and loved. Valued and loved. And now, welcome, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, but even that doesn't happen a lot of times. Okay? We were in the store the other day, I forget what it was, and somebody just breezed past us. Anyway, catalyst and source sound like similar, but be a catalyst. So that catalyst, that tipping point of happiness, give them a moment of joy or care. Be a source for big dreams and big actions. You sure that's not just caffeine?
Sometimes it could be, right? I mean, sometimes practically that's just what someone does need, but that's not what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah, I know. Be a radical giver. Did you see the book, The Go-Giver? Oh yeah, Go-Giver. You'd love The Go-Giver. Okay, it's a simple book, parable. It's basically about just giving and expecting nothing in return.
Yeah.
And it always yields dividends, even if it's just you feel better about yourself. Okay? Of our time, talent, and treasure, awesome. Be a builder of genuine human community. I would love to see that across America. Genuine human community with healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
For the people that just aren't healthy enough to get into it. I mean, we have wounds that have been building probably since World War I.
Yeah.
Got worse after World War II, and then tremendously worse after Korean War and Vietnam. And so these parents, we have a set of dysfunctional parents doing their best, instinctively parenting the way their parents parented, okay? But then they've got their wounds in addition to that. So then it gets a little worse and a little worse. I mean, my parents were wonderful, loving people, but they were so wounded.
Yeah.
What I know now, not knowing as a kid, but they just didn't know how to do certain things.
And the only way though to even understand, some people don't even know they have wounds.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So the only way to kind of really find that out is to just build a relationship that has, I'm not trying to be a friend for any other reason because I care about you.
Yeah.
And they realize that, wow, I don't have to be anybody to be in this person's life. They just want to be.
And it sounds like what you're focusing on is not, I'm going to change anyone.
No.
All I'm going to do is pour the water on the seed that's love.
Yeah.
And I love the fact, so many people have things against Jesus. He only gave one commandment, right? John 13, 34, 35.
Yeah.
New commandment I gave you, love one another. By this, men will know you are my disciples.
Yeah.
If you love one another the way I've loved you. Type of, I didn't say that exactly, but the concept, if we just love on one another.
Yeah.
We have a great nation that can heal. Gosh, I'd love it. Anyway, so, but we're missing a couple of, can we look at the people?
Yeah.
So
that was Gary and his wife, who I had spoken about earlier, who was very involved in just helping a lot of our cosmetics, our programs, our systems, our websites, and we need people as much as they need us. This is a two-way street here. And Gary came in and saw that we needed some help with some of the website things, software, design work, and Gary came and just as a friend and as someone who believed in what we did, spent a lot of probably 18 months just helping us with what we're building. Bill is our roaster. That's Nick and Sienna over there, who's our ops director, who's just doing such an amazing job. These are some of our baristas. That's our farmer over there, Jorge. This is one of our Congress elects, my wife, Mark from the Levin I mentioned.
So which one's your wife?
This amazing, beautiful lady right over here. Yeah, I don't know how I got so lucky. She is such an incredible woman.
I've heard that's what makes marriages great, is when each one feels like they got the better deal.
Yeah, we just mesh. We are two peas in a pod.
Awesome.
And then we've got my son up there and a police officer, different kids in our community that come to the store all the time. It is really cool to see how much my staff love the kids in our community. They just do. The kids come in and they know them by name. So yeah, it's made up out of a beautiful, genuine community that cares about each other.
I love it. And I love that people matter most. And I love the shirt, You Matter. And that's the big sign that's in Vacaville, You Matter. Everybody matters.
Yeah.
The same degree, the same amount.
Someone else, he's a pastor who worked for us.
Oh, cool.
And he's now literally just volunteering to help train the staff. So just because he wants to be involved.
That's great.
So he's training
That's great.
staff.
So it helps the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might get a kick out of this.
Yeah.
But, so we go to Bloom Coffee in
I know
Roseville.
Bloom. Yep.
Yeah, I love Bloom.
So we actually started our coffee supplies from the same people that they used to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, they have killer cookies. But
Yeah.
so I go in, and when I go in and they have somebody new, I keep the list on my phone in notes
Way to go.
with a short descriptor. So I will say, I'll say their name. Now, some of them I've memorized, like I know Alexa and I know Avery and I know David and, but other ones I know that guy and I can look it up. And by the time I get up there, because I'm only like 2 people back, then I can say, aren't you so-and-so? And it's like, they light up, when I do that. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm doing the reverse.
And I think that's honestly though, the relationships that have formed from having this cafe, both me and the friendships that I've made from just being the cafe owner and being real with people.
Yeah.
It's amazing just watching even some of the staff getting that same feedback with now I actually get to make these friends. Oh, that person cuts my hair and this person's my realtor. And so out of just being relational like that, you just never know what kind of people you bump into. Even this relationship, right, has come from Jenny, who, we knew from Journey and said we need to connect. So you never know what happens with those over-the-counter relationships.
Yeah. So we've got expectations, we got mission. Did you have a third?
I would say getting the right people on the bus, and I've read this in a book. And getting,
Jim Collins.
Yeah, getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. And I think for me, someone who loves people so much, I take a little bit longer to get those people off the bus. And we do everything we can to not just be like, hey, you're out of the bus. We try and develop. We try and go, is there a way for us to redirect? But again, when you have so many moving people and parts, it's just so important to keep that happening. And again, our retention is great. It means we generally get a good job with getting the right people on the bus. Every now and again, someone sneaks in, and it really is a frustration for so many people when everybody's on the same mission and everybody's doing the things right, and there's one person who's just not on that. So making sure that you constantly are reevaluating your team and looking at your team and making sure that maybe it's not even getting them off the bus sometimes. It's really just putting them on another bus, right? And another lane in the company. We've had a girl who's worked for us for almost since we opened up 8 years, but her lanes has changed about 5 times. Because she had our mission at heart, but we needed to get her skills. Okay, well, this isn't a skill that was the right fit. So making sure that everybody, even people might say, well, it's just a coffee shop. So no, everybody's got a skill, and we don't want to put them on the food line if they are not good with food, right? We don't want to put them at the register if they are someone who is shy, because it's not going to necessarily help our customers. So, I think making sure that your team is doing what they should be doing, getting people off the bus that should not be on the bus. So team placement. Maybe
I'll
that's
tell you,
a better way.
I've worked with hundreds of leaders, and whether they love people or hate people, keeping people too long is extremely common. Because it's just easier to have someone who's not meeting your standards than it is to start the whole process over again. And years ago, when I looked at the surveys, the number one thing across the board was firing people that managers hated. Number one hated thing managers had to do was fire people. And so over the years, I've developed a process that's how you confront people in a positive way, how you give them opportunities to improve. And if it's not working, it's very transparent that then you need to move on, because you're actually holding them up from a better opportunity or from simply growing. It takes those moments to wake somebody up. And sometimes it's not the first time they're let go.
And we've fired and rehired 5 people.
Well, that's something too.
So,
how did that work out?
4 of them, amazing. One of them actually still works for us right now and is in one of our leadership roles. And 1 out of 5 didn't work so well, but all the others grew from it. They came back realizing, man, okay, maybe there was something I learned growing. Okay, great. That's all I expect from people, is just, if you can grow and learn, you're back on the team. I have a client in New York, Peter Fiddler, and his son Michael, who run WCA Technologies, their IT
managed service provider.
Yep.
And they had an employee leave, didn't leave in a nice way. And then a year or so later said, hey, I made a mistake. I went for a little more money, but this is a sweatshop. This is a terrible job. Can I please come back? I'm really sorry the way I left, whatever. And, I'm not saying that the guy's perfect, but, he's still there and he's a contributor and he's thankful to be there and they're glad to have him and they've still got he's still growing. But I think that's great. I think it's a big question for leaders. Do you take someone back?
And it takes that one characteristic that we look for, which is humility.
Exactly.
Someone to come back and say, hey, can I reapply? Well, it takes a little bit of humility to get fired and then come back and say, can I try again? That's a huge sign of someone with humility. And
so if people want to learn more about Journey Coffee or your story, where do they go?
JourneyCoffeeCo.com.
Okay.
Come to any of our cafes. I'm sure if you come and stop, we have 4 different locations at the coffee shops. And then we also have the whiskey and wine bar too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great, Morne. I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope that we can connect personally, professionally, separately, because I hope it's a friendship that continues. And I hope we can get Jenny Murphy and her family to move back to California.
They keep trying to open up a Journey Coffee there, and I'm like, no, you have to come back. So,
well, Kevin would be awesome.
Yeah,
leading the shop.
I agree.
I mean, I remember there was a guy named Bill and his wife. They ran Pacific Cafe. It was a seafood restaurant in Kentfield. And all they did was dinner, okay? And so you would show up, and if they did not have a table, Bill gave you a free glass of wine.
That's cool.
While you stood around and waited. And he would remember your name, like cheers, okay? And they were packed all the time. Of course, they had good food. Mm-hmm. But it was the atmosphere that really brought people. It wasn't that big of a community, but it would just pack in because you knew Bill would remember you, the food was good, it was nice. Same type of thing here with Journey Coffee. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Well, thanks for your time, and I'm excited to hang out, like you said, a little more and just a personal and get to know you a little bit.
Great. I want to thank you for joining us. Remember our sponsor, Habitly.com. If you liked the conversation with Morne, please give us a comment, give us a rating. We love the feedback. Ask somebody else to subscribe to our podcast. We'd love to have them join the community. And stay tuned. We got more great guests coming. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.